What is up, you guys? I hope you're all doing well. I'm Tony Fuentes, and today we're looking at computers for video editing in 2021. Now, I normally do tutorials about photo and video in this channel, so this is going to be quite different from the normal videos that I upload, but let's get into it. Now, this video is going to be divided into two parts. The first part, we're going to explain the components and the requirements for video editing in Premiere Pro and Davinci Resolve, and then we're going to jump into Amazon and check out computers from the most basic computers that we need, or the basic components or specs, and then moving on to the most ideal components or the best computers for video editing in laptops. So if you want to jump to the models, just click on the chapter down here in the timeline so you can skip all the explanation. Okay, for video editing in Premiere Pro and Davinci Resolve, we need three main specs. We need the processor, a high performance processor, then we need a high GPU, and then we have the RAM memory. And other than that, maybe some bonuses. We need an IPS sensor monitor and also SSD. Now let's jump into the specs. Now let's briefly explain what all these specs are and what we're looking for in a computer. Now, a processor is the brains and hearts of the computer. It's basically the brain, and within the computer it has its cores. Now, the cores we can think of as the work groups within the computer, and each of these cores can perform one, two, or several tasks. Now, when we look at specs, we can see these types of specs. We can see first the brand, that's Intel, then the i7, that's the model from the 11th generation, working with 6 cores and 12 threads. Now, the threads are logic cores, are basically virtual cores that the computer has. And basically what the threads say is each of these cores can perform 2 tasks at the same time, being a total of 12. 6 times 2 equals 12, obviously. So 12 tasks at the same time can be performed by this processor with a speed of 2.5 gigahertz up to 5.5 gigahertz or anything like that. That's the speed in which each of these cores performs, and the maximum speed which will be implemented in moments like rendering a video, for example, or playing a video game. That's when the cores work the most. Now, when we're looking at brands for processors, we have two main brands. We have Intel with the i5 and the i7, each working with 6 or 8 cores respectively, and then we have AMD with the 5 and the 7 working with 6 and 8 cores respectively. So we're looking for any of these types of processors from these brands, from these series, working with 6 cores or 8 cores ideally, or beyond, and working at speeds of 2.5 gigahertz up to 5 gigahertz. So basically that's what we're looking for in a processor. And the second spec that we want to look into is the GPU or graphics card. And basically there are computers have normally 2 graphics cards. They have one which is the one that takes care of everything displaying correctly on screen, and then we have the dedicated graphics card, which is what we have to look into if we want to dedicate ourselves to video editing. And again, we have two main competitors. We have AMD once again, and then we have NVIDIA. Now, what we're looking for is a graphics card with a capacity of 6 gigabytes, minimum 4. 6 gigabytes would be ideal, or 8, that would be top notch. For NVIDIA, what we're looking for is minimum the GTX 1660 Ti, that's the minimum as a benchmark, and then we go up all the way down to the RTX 2060 or 2070. All of those are great and fantastic, guys. And then in AMD, we're looking at the Radeon series with the RX 5600 or 5700. All of those are fantastic as well. They're the equivalent of the Intels. Now, I'm not going to get into teraflops and benchmark comparisons. If you want to check that out, I highly suggest checking out Max Tech's channel. I'll link it down below. He compares everything in every component of the computer and compares graphic cards and all kinds of stuff. If you want to go check it out, go and support him. And other than that, guys, the other thing that we need is the RAM memory. Now, RAM memory is different to our storage memory, that's the hard drives. The RAM memory is basically temporary memory that allows us to perform several tasks at the same time. Now, if you want to have a lot of programs open, you need high memory count. If you want to use programs like Premiere Pro or Davinci, they demand a high memory. So basically what we need as a minimum is 8 gigabytes of memory with a maximum or an ideal of 16 to 32. So those are the three main specs that we need. Other than that, I would consider maybe the monitor. We would like to have an IPS monitor with 100% RGB. And that meaning that the colors that you're editing right here are the same colors that are going to be printed and are going to be displayed in every single device. A lot of times I've edited in my computer, my previous computer, which didn't have IPS, and I edited, and when I printed the images or I passed them into a client, I noticed that the colors were completely off and completely different to what I edited. So an IPS or RGB 100% monitor would be quite ideal, but it's not a deal breaker. Now, other than that, maybe a hard drive and an SSD. Now, the SSD will allow us to load up files and programs a lot faster than the hard drives. So basically, an SSD is a faster version of the hard drive that is shock resistant as well. So that would be ideal as well. but again, it's not a deal breaker. Now let's jump into Amazon and let's check out the computers. We'll start off with the lowest budget computers with high performance, and then we're moving on to the highest quality, guys. So just a little disclaimer, guys, before we jump into the models, I'm not going to talk about the MacBooks in particular because MacBook is currently transitioning between the Intel chips and the M1s, and we don't know what the M1X on the MacBook Pro is going to be, which is going to be, certainly is going to be a good processor, but right now we don't have any specs to compare it with the Intels or the AMDs, guys. So having said that, we're going to jump into the models and we're going to start with the lowest budget. So in this case, for $930, we have the Dell G5 from last year. I didn't find any computer in Amazon with the Intel from the 11th generation yet. We're starting the year, it's quite early. And this processor works with 6 physical cores with 2.6 GHz as a clock-based speed, up to 5 GHz of turbo boost. So that's quite good, guys. Also, it has a 1650 Ti. It's not ideal, but it will do the job quite slowly, but it will do the job, editing 4K and all that, guys. Other than that, it's looking quite good. It doesn't have IPS or sRGB 100% on the monitor, which is quite a bummer, but it does have a 500 GB SSD, which is quite good actually, guys. So that's the cheapest option that we have in consideration. Next up, we have a Lenovo computer. Now, Lenovo, the Legion in particular, that series is very good throughout the years. Now, in this case, they've changed it up a bit. They used to have Intel chips. Now they changed it up to AMD, which is quite good because it gives us a price range which is very low comparing to the Intel processors. So for the processor, we have an AMD Ryzen 7 4800H, the H marking that it works at a high speeds. And this one has 8 cores, guys. This is incredible. 8 cores comparing to the 6 cores that we saw previously. Now these cores work at a 2.6 clock-based speed, which is very good, guys. And considering it has 8 cores, it also has another 8 threads, which allows it to do all kinds of tasks. Other than that, we have 16 GB of RAM. This computer does have IPS sensor monitor, and again we have an NVIDIA GTX, but in this case this is the minimum. This is quite a good one, the 1660 Ti with 6 GB of GPU, which is outstanding. So this computer is very good. It's incredible, I would say, for the price, so check mark to this one, and I would highly recommend this one, guys. Next, we have a similar model to the one that I have. I also have an Omen 15. Now HP has the Omen series, which is the Gamma for video gaming. So in this case, we have this computer, which is quite good. It has an IPS sensor monitor at Full HD, Intel i7 from the 10th generation, working with 6 physical cores and 12 threads at 2.5 GHz with a turbo boost of 5.0, which is quite good, guys. Then the RAM is a bit low, 8 GB, but it's bearable, it's the minimum. It also has an SSD with 500 GB, which is quite good actually. And again, this computer, highly recommended. And again, just under $1,100, this computer is highly recommended, particularly because the Omen series, everything, the motherboard, the circuits, all of that is made by Omen and HP. So all the model works in conjunction with all the elements within it, guys. Next up, we have one that is not very pretty, but it is highly effective and very powerful. Just over $1,100. This computer is incredible. This is the Acer Predator Helios 300 that has an Intel i7, the same one that we mentioned before, with a clock-based speed of 2.6 to 5 GHz and 6 physical cores, 12 threads. And this is the thing that really is outstanding about this computer. It has an NVIDIA RTX 2060 6 GB. Now, this obviously is a step above from the previous model, the 1660 Ti. This is an incredible GPU. This is the one that my computer has, and it works fantastically, guys. The export times and the rendering is incredible with this GPU. Then also it has IPS quality on the monitor, which is nice to have, and a 500 GB SSD. Now, this computer, highly recommended. If you don't mind that it's not very pretty, guys, it's a gaming laptop. It's not meant to be aesthetic. It's not a Mac or a Razer Blade or anything like that, but also it's incredible, guys. Highly recommended. This one, again, for the price, is a very affordable price for such a highly spec'd computer. Highly recommended. Check mark to this one as well. Next up, we have MSI, which is a brand dedicated to making high quality computers, high performing computers. This time is the GL65 Leopard, working with the same processors that we saw in the previous models. Intel i7 from 10th generation, 6 cores, working with 2.6 GHz as a clock-based speed, 5.0 as turbo boost, and again, this one has Full HD IPS sensor quality in the monitor, and working with 144 GHz, which is good or nice if you want to make your visualization of your rendering a bit pretty, and if you like gaming in particular. But then we have an upscale from the previous models in the graphics card. We have the RTX 2070. This is an incredible graphics card working with 8 GB. So it's quite a big step from the previous models. And also it has 16 GB of RAM, which is nice, 500 on the SSD. So this computer, fantastic, highly recommended as well. And over $1,300, which is starting to be quite a price tag, but this computer is quite worth it, guys. Just a reminder, guys, that all these computers are going to be linked down below if you want to go check it out yourselves. Next up, we have the same Dell, but with different specs. So in this case, this is the G5, again, with the Full HD monitor. In this case, it does have the IPS quality over here, which is fantastic. That means sRGB 100% or very close to 100%. So you can have true tones and true colors in all your edits. Other than that, now this one has the Intel i7, previous one had Intel i5. This is the same processor that we've seen, 6 cores, 2.6 clock by speed, 5.0 the turbo boost. This one comes with 16 GB of RAM, 500 GB of SSD, and it has the 1660 Ti, quite a downscale from the previous model that we saw, the MSI, and it comes over $1,400. So this one I wouldn't recommend it. I would recommend to go better for this one, the MSI or any previous models, but Dell isn't really up to speed right now. Next up, we have Razer Blade. Now Razer Blade, if you're into aesthetics, if you like MacBooks and you like quite a clean look in your computer or your laptop, this one is the way to go. The body is made of aluminum and is a very thin model in particular. This is why it's so expensive, $1,500. The RTX 60 with 6 GB of GPU, and the screen is quite fantastic, guys. It's of course IPS, and also it has 144 GHz for gaming. And other than that, here we can see that it has the same processor that we've seen previously with 6 cores and 16 threads, which is fantastic, guys. So this computer is pretty, it works very good. So again, highly recommended. And again, we have another Omen 15, the same model, but with better specs. So in this case, differences is it has the same processor with the Intel i7 with 6 physical cores, 16 GB of RAM. This is a bit better from the previous model. And this is basically the same model that I have, guys, with the exception that this one has the RTX 2070 with 8 GB max Q, guys. This is an outstanding graphics card that will allow you to export and render 8K videos without a problem, guys, and view them in real time while you're editing, guys. So this graphics card is fantastic. I have the 2060, which is quite good as well, but this one really tops it by a bit, guys. So this one comes a bit cheaper from the previous model that we saw, the Razer Blade. This one comes at $1,370, which is quite nice, actually. Quite a nice price. Also highly recommended this one, guys. Okay, next up we have Asus ROGs. Now, Republic of Gamers is the gaming gamma from Asus, and it has a lot of mixed reviews. Some computers come out with some defects, others come out fantastic, guys. This is the Strix G15. This computer also is fantastic, guys. This is an Intel with 8 cores, Intel i7 with 8 cores with a high frequency. This is one incredible processor from Intel. So this processor works with a clock base speed of 2.2. Now that's quite low, but considering it's 8 physical cores, that's incredible, guys. 8 cores working at a lower speed is always better than fewer cores working more with higher speeds, and with a clock base speed of 2.2 with a maximum of 5.0 GHz. This is a fantastic processor, the best that we've seen yet in these models, guys. And again, it has the RTX 2060 with 6 GB, 32 GB of RAM. That's fantastic. 2 TB of SSD. Fantastic again, guys. This computer highly recommended just because of the specs. The specs are outstanding, and it comes with a price of $1,580. Now, why is it so cheap? It's basically because it's an Asus, guys. Now, they're not very pretty. They're basically made out of plastic with some aluminum in the screen over here. And overall, Asus doesn't have the best reputation. That's why it's so cheap. But I would highly recommend going for this one because of its screen, 240 Hz, Full HD IPS quality with 8 GB. That's incredible, guys. 8 physical cores, and the RTX 60, 32 RAMs and 2 GB of SSD. What you're getting out of this computer is worth the double of this amount, guys. So this one, highly recommended, of course. Next up, we have another version of the MSI Leopard. So in this case, this one has the same processor that we've seen in the previous models, the Intel i7 from the 10th generation with 6 cores, but this one comes with a higher price tag with $1,450. That's basically because the upscale on the GPU. This one has the 2070 with 8 gigabytes. This is incredible as well. Very good GPU, incredible actually, with 16 gigabytes expandable all the way up to 32. So on this computer, again 15-inch with full HD, IPS quality and 144 Hz. This is a very good computer, highly recommended as well, guys. Okay, next up we have a computer that's probably not worth its price, in particular because of the specs, but the brand Alienware from Dell, if you didn't know, Alienware is from Dell, is a very high regarded brand. So this is the M15R3. This computer comes around at $1,700. This is an incredible computer as well, but it is very expensive for the specs that it has, guys. It has the Intel i7 from the 10th generation with 6 cores, only 6 physical cores, which is the same processor that we've seen in models that are way cheaper. And again, it has 16 gigabytes of RAM. And then we're going to go all the way down to the RTX 2060 with 6 gigabytes as well. So this computer doesn't have the best specs. We've obviously seen computers with better specs with lower price tags. So why is it so expensive? Basically because of the brand, because Alienware is a highly regarded brand. And again, the internal components are very good. And then if we look over here, the side view, all this part in the back is ventilation, guys. This computer has very good ventilation, but this computer really is very heavy. It's crossing the lines, it's almost crossing the lines between being a stationary laptop because it's so heavy and so big. It isn't the best option that we have out there, guys. Now we do have some things that we can adjust, like the processor. We can amp it up to the 8 gigabytes from the computer that we previously saw, the Strix from Asus. Also the graphics card all the way to the 2080 Super, which is an outstanding computer, but now we can see that the price is really scaling and it's way too much, guys. I don't think it's worth it. For that price, you can build your own computer, your own desktop computer, and have the same specs at half the price of this. And also you can go for the Asus ROG Strix, which is half the price of this, $1,000 cheaper, and getting the same specs, guys. And lastly but not least, guys, we have another one that I don't recommend at all. This is a Razer Blade 17-inch with 4K screen, IPS quality, working with 120 Hz. This computer, fantastic, with the Intel i7 with 8 GB physical cores, 16 threads, and working with the RTX 2080 Super with 8 GB of GPU. This computer is a complete monster, guys. 16 GB expandable all the way up to 64. That's fantastic, guys. And 1 TB of SSD. Now this computer is a complete monster, as you've noticed, and the price also is a monster, guys. $3,500 is way too much for a laptop. Yeah, the specs are fantastic, but they're not worth it, guys. 4K screen. Why do you need a 4K screen in a 17-inch? You don't really need it. You're not going to be able to see the complete range of the pixels in particular, so I don't recommend this one. But I just wanted to show you guys what the highest quality or highest gamma of computers is, and it will be the Alienwares and the Razer Blades with all those full specs, guys. So fantastic computer, but not worth this price, guys. The specs don't really justify the price. Still, they are fantastic specs, and if you can buy it, well, good for you guys. That's all. That's all I can say. This computer, I wouldn't buy it in a million years. I prefer to buy an HP Omen or the Asus ROG, all those computers that we've hinted before, the Acer Predator, and then build my computer, my desktop computer, with a lower price and the same kind of specs. And those are some of the computers that are very good prospects, guys. Remember, all the links to those computers are linked down below in the Amazon US, and I get a small commission if you buy anything through that, whether it be a computer, whether it be toilet paper or dog food, anything like that can help me a bit with a small commission. Other than that, guys, I hope you liked the video. If you did, can you please give it a like? It really makes a difference, and consider subscribing. Hit the notification bell to be notified when I upload the next video. I'm Tony Fuentes. Cheers to all of you, and see you in the next one.